Welcome back everyone to the next part in our blogging app series. In the last part, we had integrated Revenue Cat to handle our in-app purchases. And in this part, we're going to finally start working on our authentication system, aka sign in and sign up. So without further ado, drop a like down below, open up Xcode, and let's jump back into our project. So we have already brought in Firebase, the dependency we're going to use to manage authentication, to our project. So in this video, we want to do two things. We want to hook up the Firebase function calls to actually create users. And then we also, of course, want to have our user interface to allow the user to sign in, sign up, and sign out. So here in the Firebase dashboard, you guys might recall we actually already enabled email and password authentication if you come into sign in methods here, but we haven't actually created any users yet if you look under this first tab. So let's go ahead and work on this. So let's jump into our controllers folder. Our controllers folder is basically going to house, our sign in and sign up controllers. It's going to be under auth since we're nice and organized here. And in sign in right now, for testing purposes, we had added this code to show the paywall. We're no longer want to do this. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. And let's talk about the user interface that we want to show here on the sign in screen. It's fairly straightforward. Let's talk about it though. So we're going to have a nice header view, and the header view is going to show maybe a icon, maybe a title of some like slogan for our app. We're going to want a email field, we'll want a password field, and we're going to want a sign in button. And then of course, we're also going to want a create account button in case, it's a new user. In our case, we're going to start off as a brand new user. So let's go ahead and create these one by one. So the header view, I want it to have an icon as well as maybe a label, a nice slogan for our app. So instead of adding all of those subviews in here, we're going to throw it into the views folder. So we're going to go ahead and open this up. I'm going to create a new file in here. It's going to be a Cocoa Touch class. We're going to subclass UI view, and we're going to create a sign in header view just like that. And the sign in header view is going to have two things: a icon for the app logo as well as a slogan like I mentioned. So we're going to first want to go ahead and override the initializer, and we want init with frame. We're going to go ahead and call super init with frame and pass that in. We're going to say clips to bounds is true. We're going to want to bring in the required initializer, so let's go ahead and do that. Let me fix my typo right there. We're going to want to lay out everything that is a sub view, so we're going to override layout sub views, and let's go ahead and add those sub views. So first up, we're going to want an image view in here, and we can make it private since all of this is self-contained in this UI view. So what are we going to do in here? We're going to instantiate a UI image view, go ahead and return said image view. And actually you can go ahead and create this with an image named, and I believe we had brought an image in called logo, and we'll see if this works in a moment here. Now the other thing on this image view that I'm going to go ahead and do is assign a content mode, and I'm going to go ahead and say that we want to maintain the aspect ratio. So we're going to say scale aspect fit, and just for the sake of it, let's also set a background color in case we don't actually have an image named logo and we want to go ahead and see the frame of our image view. So that's that. Let's go ahead and add a label in here, which is going to be something like a slogan label. So we'll go ahead and create it in a very similar anonymous closure pattern. Going to go ahead and return the label here. I'm going to center align the text. So we're going to say centered. We're also going to go ahead and fix that first. We're also going to go ahead and say label.number of lines is going to be 0, which will allow our lines to line wrap. Let's go ahead and bump up the font. So we're going to go ahead and say that we are going to assign system fonts of size maybe 20 of weight medium, which will be a little bolder than regular. And finally, let's go ahead and assign our text. So our text is going to be explore millions of articles, and this will basically allow you to get a glimpse of what you're signing in for in the app. So there's our label. Let's go ahead and add these as subviews. So our label, We're also going to go ahead and add that image view. And finally, we want to lay everything out. So how do we want to lay everything out? So the image view is pretty simple. Let's go ahead and calculate an image size, which will be a CG float. And I'm going to go ahead and take the width of the containing header view and divide it by 4. And that's going to be our size for the image view. So we're going to say image view frame is going to be a CG rect. The X here is going to be the width minus size divided by 2, so it's horizontally centered. Y will be maybe 10, and then width and height will be size respectively, just like that. And let's see, I think we should be good to go for the image view. Let's see the label right below it. So label is going to be CG rect, X is going to be maybe 20, Y is going to be image view dot bottom plus 10. The width will be width minus 40, and perhaps the height is simply going to be the height subtracting size, which is the image view's height, and then subtracting 30, which will give us some vertical margin. So that is our header view. Let's go ahead and add it into our sign-in view controller's view, and we'll go ahead and run our app to make sure that everything is looking correct. So we'll go ahead and say private let header view. Let's make sure we spelled that correctly. Header view is going to be an instance like that. I'm going to go ahead and say add sub view on the view just like that, and we're going to want to lay all this good stuff out. So we'll say view did layout sub views, super view did layout sub views, and this guy is going to be CG rect, X will be 0, Y is going to be view safe area insets dot top. This will be the width, and maybe the height will be view.height divided by, I don't know, 3.5. And let's go ahead and give it a run, and maybe actually we can even get away with 4. Let's give it a run and let's see what that looks like. We can of course change our layout as we see fit as we iterate on our app here. So hopefully we successfully build, looks like we did, and we should see our nice little logo at the top as well as our little description telling us that we can explore millions of articles. So bear with me here. I think we already had assigned a nice title for the user to see that this is the sign-in screen. And assuming this looks correct, we'll build out all of our UI and then we'll come back to this. So cool, so looking pretty good. Explore millions of articles. We might actually even want to go ahead and make this a tiny bit smaller in the height department. So we might actually want to go ahead and say divided by 5 here. So let's go ahead and create the rest of this stuff and then we'll give it a run one more time. So the next thing that we're going to want to do is create a field here. So we're going to say email field is going to be a UI text field. We'll go ahead and create it in the same anonymous closure pattern. UI text field, go ahead and return this guy, and you can supply a variety of properties on here. So there is a keyboard type. We're going to go ahead and say email. We're going to also go ahead and say we want to assign a left view. This is going to give us a little bit of left padding. So we're going to go ahead and say UI view, frame, CG rect, and this is going to basically just have a margin of 10. So 0, 0, width will be 10, and height will give it 50, which is the height we're going to use for the field. Let's also go ahead and say that this has a placeholder of email address. And now we also want to give it a little bit of coloring, so when we actually are in light mode or dark mode, we can see it. And what I like to do is use the secondary semantic background color, so we can go ahead and say secondary. So let's see, we want this to be the background color is what I'm looking for. And this guy is going to be the secondary system background, just like that. And just for the sake of making everything look a little bit nicer, let's go ahead and give this a nice corner radius of 8. I will also go ahead and mask it to bounds, just like that. So we'll say mask to bounds. And there is our email field. So we can actually be nice and lazy and copy and paste this for the password. Just make sure you don't forget to update this to be the password field. Here we can get rid of that guy. And let's see, so this one we're going to go ahead and say that this is the password field. And what else do we need? Most importantly, we're going to say is secured is going to be true, which is going to show asterisks for our password as we type it on in. The next thing that we want here is a sign in button. So we're going to go ahead and say sign in button is going to be a UI button. And this might seem a little verbose right now, but the nice thing about all this is we'll be able to copy and paste this to our sign up screen. So all of this isn't, throwaway code where we have to type it all over again. So here we're going to go ahead and create this sign in button. We'll give it a nice background color. Also going to set a title color as well as a title. So here we're going to say set a title. Title is going to be sign in for the state of normal. Just like that, we're going to go ahead and say set a title color is what I'm looking for now, which is going to be white, also for normal. And let's see, what else do we want on here? Now you can go ahead and make a corner radius. I'm not going to go too crazy with it, but let's go ahead and copy and paste this for our create account button and just slightly tweak it. So we'll go ahead and call this create account button. Its title is going to be create account, just like that. Background color is going to be nil, but our title color will be link, which is a nice blue color. And let's go ahead and add all these on our view hierarchy, and we can lay everything out and make sure it's looking good. So first up, we're going to add our fields. We're going to say email field, password field, and our two buttons. So this one will be password field. This will be sign in button, and this is going to be create account button. We're going to want to go ahead and attach our buttons to handlers. So let me do that really quick. So we'll say func did tap sign in, just like that. Next one is going to be did tap create account. And let's go ahead and attach these. So the way we're going to attach it is by adding targets and selectors. So we're going to say sign in button, add target self. The selector will be did tap sign in, and this is going to be for touch up inside. That's the event that's going to trigger it, and we can actually copy and paste it and just tweak the button as well as the selector there. So create account button, just like that. Let's go ahead and lay this all out and we can give it a run. So the thing that's going to show up right below the header is going to be the email field. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and its X is going to be 20. The Y is going to be the header view dot bottom. The width will be view dot width minus 40, and the height will be 50. So go ahead and actually copy and paste this a total of 3 more times, and let's go ahead and tweak all of these. So we'll have password field, sign in button, and a create account button to go ahead and find that, and we need to tweak all of the Y values. So here we're going to say this is going to be the email field bottom plus 10. This one will be the password field bottom plus maybe 30 to give it a little bit of margin, or maybe we'll do 10 here as well. And here we'll actually do the sign in button dot bottom, and this is the one that's going to have more margin, so we'll maybe say 40 here. And I think we should be good to go. So let's go ahead and give this a run and make sure our sign-in UI is looking good. Lots of code, pretty redundant, but hopefully we'll be able to copy and paste the majority of this to create our create account UI, which is sign up. So cool, looking pretty good. I really like how it's coming out. We got create account here. We can tap into these and of course type. It looks like we don't quite have that margin that we were looking for. So let's see what I missed here. So we added that left view, but one thing that I think we did forget to do is set a left view mode. So on the fields here, right below where you've assigned the left view, we want to go ahead and say left view mode is going to be always, and that's going to always show that left view that we have assigned, so we get the nice look of having a margin on the left hand side. Now in that left view, some people like to add a little icon that indicates what the field is for. We're not going to get too crazy with this since we just want to kind of build out our core functionality first. We can always go back and polish and iterate. So now if you start typing, you'll see there's a nice margin and your cursor starts where the placeholder is. So looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and hook up our buttons and actually create some accounts. So what do we want to do in the create account handler? Well, this one's pretty easy. We're going to create a sign up view controller, and I'm simply going to go ahead and assign the title here. Its title is going to be create account, just like that. And we're going to go ahead and say navigation controller. We're going to go ahead and push on this view controller onto the stack. Now, what do we actually want to do in that controller? Well, like I mentioned, we're going to be clever and we're going to copy all the code in here, and let's see how much we can get away with copy and pasting. So we're going to jump into sign up. I'm going to go ahead and copy and dump all of that stuff in here, and let's go ahead and see what we can go ahead and do. So the header view, I think we can keep as is. We're going to want a email field, which we've got already. We're going to want a password field. Now this one is going to be updated to a sign up button, and maybe we'll go ahead and change the text here to be create account. I'll also change the background color to system green is what I'm looking for, kind of like a confirmation looking color. So that's looking pretty good. We no longer want a create account button here, so we can get rid of this guy and see what else we need. So we want to change the title here. This is going to be create an account. We don't have the sign in button anymore. It is now sign up. We can get rid of create accounts. This one here we don't need for create accounts. We can tweak this to sign up button, and let's see what else we need. So create account, boom, it's gone. This one here will be sign up, and let's see what else I need. So this here, we're going to update to did tap sign up, since that's what the function is going to do for us. And make sure you don't forget to update the selector here as well. Let me go ahead and hit Command B, make sure everything is building. Now, one other thing that you might be wondering is, well, how are we going to actually figure out, who's the account owner? Maybe we want to add something like username, or the user's actual full name. So in our case, we're going to ask the user to enter their name. So we're going to have another field here, and we'll be able to just copy and paste this and tweak as we go. So here I'm going to go ahead and say this is the user's name field. Keyboard type, let's see if there is a name attribute in here. Looks like there is not. So we'll go ahead and do that, and I'll change the placeholder to full name. So we're going to go ahead and type that in there just like that. And let's see, how else do we want to adjust this? We want to make sure we add it as a sub view. We can't forget to do that. We'll say view, add sub view, name field, and we want to lay it out as well. So let's go ahead and change this to name field, and we simply want to adjust all of our Y coordinates at this point. So this is going to be name field dot bottom plus 10, and actually everything else can remain. So the next one, the password, is below the name, below email I should say, and then finally the sign up button is below the password field. So we just copy and pasted very quickly. Let's give it a run and validate that our changes on our copy and pastes are accurate. We can go ahead and run the app and click on the create account button, and then the next thing we'll need to do is actually wire up these calls to create accounts. So looking pretty good. I like how this came out. One thing that's a little strange is this create accounts title should probably be smaller and inline. It's a little big for kind of what I would like it to look like. So let's go ahead and tweak that. So pretty simple to tweak. Back in the sign in view controller here at the bottom where we push on the controller, we're going to say vc.navigation item. And there is a large title display mode, and we're going to go ahead and say never for that. We never want it to be in the large configuration. Now the next thing we want to do is move on over to our managers, and our managers are actually going to be responsible for, managing creating accounts and things like that. And in fact, we actually went ahead and even put stuff in here already. So here we have create an account with an email and password. So that's sign up, and then once we sign up, we call the callback that we succeeded. And we also have a sign in function as well, which is awesome. So the fact that we have this, set up already and sign out, it's really easy to hook it up to our user interface. So let's go ahead and do that. So for sign up, we're going to come into here. And when we click on the button, we come into this function. The first thing that we want to do is verify that we have all the pieces of information that we need. So we're going to first say email is going to be the email field.text, and we're going to verify that the email is not empty. We're also going to do the same thing for the password. We're going to say password is password field.text and verify that the password is not empty. And finally, our third and final field, which is going to be our name, we're going to validate that the name actually exists since the text is optional, and we're going to verify that it's not empty. All right, looking pretty good. Now that we've actually done this, we need to do two things. We need to create the user, and then we also want to update the database, which is going to hold a collection of, user-related information, things like the user's name and their email, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and actually figure out how we want to do this. So for creating an account, this is easy. We're going to say auth manager shared, and we're going to say sign up. And this takes the email, the password, and we get a callback. And this is going to give us a Boolean back and telling us, if we succeeded or not. Now, if we succeeded, this is the part where we want to insert into our database. So we're going to want to extend our database manager. Now, if it didn't succeed, for now, we're going to print out failed to create account. And normally what you'd want to do is show some type of alert to the user, letting them know that something has failed. So now that that's taken care of, let's take a look at our Firebase dashboard here, and let's jump into Firestore database. And in here, you'll notice we had already set this up, and we don't have anything in here, but what we want to do is in our database manager, we want to have a way to create an account. And actually, we already have a insert blog post function, we have a get all posts, we have a get post, and then we have an insert user. Now a user object, let's see what we had put in here, consists of a name, email, and a profile picture URL. So maybe later on, we're going to want to allow the user to adjust their profile picture. So what we're going to want to actually do is call this function now in our sign-in controller, or sign-up controller, I should say. So we're going to go into here, and we're going to say database manager shared, and I'm going to go ahead and say insert a user. We're going to create the new user object, and the completion is going to have a Boolean come back again, and this is going to be inserted in. And let's go ahead and create this new user. So we'll say new user is an instance of a user model. It's going to take in the name, the email, and nil for the actual URL, just like that. So looks pretty good to me. Let's see what we want to do. Now in here, we're going to say, guard that the user was inserted, and if the user was successfully inserted, we know we are good to go, and we can actually present our core application's UI. So we're going to want to capture weak self so we don't cause a memory leak here. So we'll say weak self in these brackets up here. And here on the main thread, we are going to present our tab bar controller. So we're going to go ahead and say let's VC is going to be our tab bar controller, which, if you guys remember, we had set this up to actually contain our core tabs, and make sure your T is uppercase there so you get the instance of it. We can go ahead and say self.present VC animated true, and the other thing that's really important that you guys set on here is your modal presentation style. And you're going to want this to be full screen so it actually takes up the entirety of the screen and the user can't swipe it down to dismiss and, otherwise log out, which would be slightly strange. So let's see, now that we've got that set up, we should be good to go. I think we still need to implement this insert function. So let's go and take a look into here. I'm going to jump into here, and yep, we in fact do want to implement this still. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is we want to reference off of the database a collection for users. So we're going to say database, and we want a collection for users. Now on the users collection, we're going to want to essentially create a document, or we're going to want to get a document, and the document needs to have its ID of itself, and we're going to use the email address as the identifier, but we're going to escape the actual periods to be underscores for formatting purposes. And then on this, we're going to go ahead and say set data, where we're going to supply the document data, and it's going to give us a completion handler back. So we'll go ahead and do this in a second, and here we're going to get a error in, and we're going to go ahead and say completion error equals nil. So if the error is nil, we successfully created this entry in the database. Let's go ahead and return true to the caller. So how do we create this document ID here? So it's pretty simple. We're going to say the reference is going to be the user.email address, and we're going to replace occurrences of a dot with an underscore. So that should be good to go, hopefully. The other thing that we will actually do here is you could go ahead and replace the @ with an underscore as well, and we're going to actually do that so the @ doesn't or not the at percent, the at symbol right before the .com. So we'll go ahead and say replace occurrences of the at symbol. And we'll also go ahead and say underscore here. Let me go ahead and line break this since our code is getting a little lengthy, just for better readability purposes. Now this is going to be the document ID. We'll go ahead and line break that, and I'll toss that in here. Now in here, we want to actually pass in the key value pairs of what we would like to set. So there's a couple ways you could actually do this. I'm going to declare the data up here so it's a little cleaner. So we'll say data is going to be a dictionary. So we'll add an equal there. And what are the keys and values in here? So the first thing we're going to say is the email is going to be user.email. We're going to also have a name, which is going to be user.name. Now you can go ahead and add in the profile picture in here if you'd like. Now we're not going to do that because we already know that, it's going to be nil when the user initially signs up. And later on, we can check if it's nil and add a default image in the profile, but I digress. This is enough to get this up and working, if assuming we didn't make any mistakes. Let's go ahead and hit Command B, hit Command R to build and run, and let's make sure everything is working for signing up. And assuming signing up is looking good, hooking up signing in is really trivial. We might actually do sign out as well for the sake of testing it end to end. So let's go ahead and hit create account. I'm going to go ahead and open up my console in case we are logging any errors or anything that went wrong. Let's go ahead and start making an account. So our name is going to be iOS Academy. The email will be hello@iosacademy.io. And one thing I noticed, and I'm going to tweak this really quickly, let's jump into the sign up view controller. And I don't want all of this stuff to be capitalizing for our email and password. So for the fields here, we're going to say auto capitalization type is going to be none, since we don't want to capitalize. And I'm also going to say fields.autocorrection type for our email is also going to be none, or no, I believe is the option. And we're going to do this for the password as well, since we don't want the user's password or email on both sign in and sign up to be randomly impacted by the field formatting the text as the user types it in. So toss it into both of these fields like so. And let's go ahead and give it a run. Let's try typing it one more time. And back here in Firebase, we're going to actually go to the Authentication tab, and we're going to make sure nothing's in there, which is looking pretty good. And once we sign a user up, we should see our first entry in there. So let's go ahead and do that. Here, we're going to go ahead and say iOS Academy for the name. For the email, we're going to say hello@iosacademy.io, and the password is going to be super secure. It's going to simply be password because there's no way anyone will be able to guess that. So password is password. Let's go ahead and hit our button here. And once we actually hit it, we should see our main app pop up, our main UI for our two core tabs. And if we go into our dashboard and refresh this page, you should see a new user here for the email you have entered. And let's also take a peek at our database to make sure that we have added a new user in here. So we have users. Here is the email address. You can notice we're escaping the period and the at symbol with underscores, and there is our name and email address. So boom, we're successfully signing users up. We are good to go. So let's hook up signing out and sign in really quick, and then we will wrap it up. All right, bear with me here. So when we relaunch our application, you'll notice that we're going to go to our core apps UI because we already hooked up persisting in the scene delegate, whether the user is signed in or signed out. Now we're going to add a sign out button. Actually, looks like we already added a sign out button to the top right of our profile controller. So let's jump into our profile controller just to take a peek as to what we did when this button is tapped. When we tap on this button, we actually haven't done anything quite yet. We want to go ahead and say auth manager. So we're going to say auth manager shared, and we've already implemented the sign out function with a completion handler. Now this is going to have a success. So we're going to say if success. What we want to go ahead and do is simply present our sign-in controller. So we can go ahead and say dispatch queue main async. We want to do all UI presentation on the main thread. We're going to capture weak self. And here, in fact, instead of even typing it, you can jump into your scene delegate and copy and paste the code that we wrote out here for the sign-in controller. So go ahead and do that. And pro tip to jump between files, Command Shift O, super big time saver, especially as your project gets bigger and bigger. So there is our sign-in controller, there is our navigation controller, and we're going to say self dot present navvc animated true and completion will be nil. And finally, on your nav controller, you want to go ahead and here you want to also say presentation style will be full screen, or presentation, let's see, presentation, modal presentation style is what I'm looking for actually. So modal presentation style is going to be full screen. That way the user can't swipe away the sign-in screen. So go ahead and give it a run and try to sign out. So actually one more thing I'm going to go ahead and add here is I'm going to add an alert. So the user would need to go ahead and confirm that they want to, actually sign out. So you can go ahead and use a alert controller, and we might actually use a sheet. So we're going to go ahead and say here, sign out, the message will be nil, and the style will be an action sheet. Let me go ahead and rename this alert to be a sheet. We're going to go ahead and say present sheet, just like that. Animated will be true, and if you have the completion argument, that is going to be nil. And on the sheet, we're going to go ahead and add two actions. The first one that we are going to add here is going to be the cancel action, and the style will be cancel, handler will be nil. And the other one that we're going to add here is going to be a destructive button, is what it's called, to get the red look and feel, but it's going to be the actual button to confirm the sign out. So we'll say sign out. Its style will be destructive, and its handler is where we are going to write all of our code to actually go ahead and do the sign out, which is what we wrote before, so you can just copy and paste it. So here you can say sign out, and the message could be, are you sure you'd like to sign out? And the good thing about this is if the user accidentally presses the button, you don't want to sign them out because it might be a pain to sign in again. So it's generally good practice to have them confirm that, hey, I actually do want to sign out and I didn't accidentally just touch the button, unintentionally. So we're going to go to profile, we're going to hit this button, we should get an action sheet, we'll hit sign out, and boom, we are signed out. And the way you can validate that you've truly signed out is by going ahead and running your application again, and here you should see that you are successfully still signed out. We should come back to the sign in screen, and this is the part where we can actually implement signing in. So let's jump in to our sign in controller. And very similar to sign up, what we want to go ahead and do here is we are going to unwrap the email. So the email will be the email field.text. We're going to verify that the email is not empty. We're going to go ahead and unwrap the password. So this is going to be password field.text. We're going to verify that the password field is not empty. And assuming all of those checks pass, we can go ahead and hand all of that stuff to the auth manager. So we can go ahead and say sign in with the email, with the password, and I believe we already implemented this function, and this is going to give us success in. Now, once we have successfully signed in, we don't need to do any database insert, so we can simply present the tab bar controller. So let's go ahead and be slightly lazy here. We can actually just copy and paste from our sign up controller exactly what we did for presenting tab bar there. So go ahead and drop that in like so, just like that. And we're going to go ahead and say weak self. Now, one other thing that you might want to go ahead and do is once the user successfully signs in, so here we're going to say guard, success, you might want to cache to user defaults the user's information. So here we might want to go ahead and say user defaults, standard, and we might want to go ahead and say sets the email for key email, and upon sign in, we might want to also go ahead and fetch the user's name and all that good stuff. So we'll do that in sign in as well as in sign up. So if we've signed in, we're going to do that for the user's email, and then I'm also going to do that for the user's name here. So we'll go ahead and cache name for key. And keep in mind, whenever you cache any values, you definitely want to, delete them upon log out. So in the profile controller, if we did in fact log out, we're going to go ahead and nullify the name and the emails that we have set. So we're going to say set nil for email, set nil for name, just to make sure we're not leaking any information. So that should be it for signing in, signing up, and signing out. Let's go ahead and test our sign-in functionality with the iOS Academy email account that we have just created, and let's double check that it's looking good, and in the next video we'll be good to move on. So here we have it, hello at iOSacademy.io. Password is going to be super secure. It is password. We'll go ahead and hit sign in, and boom, you successfully signed in. You can verify that you are signed in by going ahead and giving your app a run again, and your app should correctly show the state of being signed in with the 2 tabs at the bottom. And assuming that is good to go, which it in fact is, we'll wrap it up here. So don't forget to drop a like down below if you haven't done so already. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, if you missed anything, if you've got any general errors that you run into, and of course subscribe to stay up to date with iOS and Swift videos. Thanks again for watching. I'll catch you in the next part.